Hey everyone, welcome to another episode in this month's series of World Watercolor Month, the series where I'm trying to paint every day in this cute journal, and I'm following kind of the rainbow range on my palette. So I started with the yellows and now we are concluding the pinks. Next episode will be featuring my beloved cobalt violet, but today we are in bright rose land. This is probably, well, I want to say a few months ago this would be my ride or die pink, like the one pink that I kind of must have in my palette, and I still use it a lot, but I have grown very fond of also my more muted pinks. Anyway, this is bright rose. I have the Holbein version. It is my favorite, but there are some other very, very similar colors from other brands. So, make sure you check your stash and then other options. You don't have to have this one. Shinhan has a more affordable version that is almost identical, if not identical. Schmincke has a color called Brilliant Purple that is also very similar, and then Serie have, I think they call it, I want to say Opera Rose, not completely sure, but I think they also have a color that is very, very similar to this one. As you can see, it's a very kind of purplish pink, and it's lovely. So this is a color I use very often, and I was kind of thinking which color scheme or which color story do I want to use here. I have done a lot of pinks and greens in the previous pages, so I thought I would go here more in the kind of peachy tone. And you can see I decided to try out a bit of different composition with this large flower. Not sure I like it. I think large paintings bring a whole new set of challenges. You have to make it more interesting than if you do the same thing smaller. So we're going to attempt to overcome that challenge with partial success, I'm gonna say. So I decided to go from the saturated pure bright rose in the center of the flower and then kind of add other colors as I go along. Just some peachy colors like some yellows and white, and even that warm gray that I have in my palette, which I'm really loving. Kind of tone down the flowers and give it a look that is similar to roses that I've seen that have that more pinkish center and then kind of those peachy yellowish, well, I don't have a lot of yellow here, but kind of those peachy petals. So then I made that one leaf. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about the composition here, but now I'm adding something that to me makes things a lot more interesting. I'm again blocking in or out, whatever. I'm adding a background color, and I mixed this color from a few colors in my palette. I think I missed which ones they were, but it definitely has some ultramarine pink. I think I added some lavender and then some white, I want to say. I don't know. You can go back in the video and watch it. But you can see I'm just mixing this kind of grayish, bluish color. Oh, I'm adding that warm gray color. That's a color from Serie. You can see all of the colors in my palette in the setting up my summer palette. So if you're not sure, you can go back to that video, and I add also in the description there a whole list of all the colors in my palette. Maybe if I remember, I'll add it also to this one. So yeah, I just wanted to create this interesting muted background, and I really like the addition of it. I think it adds something. So now next challenge is to make this flower a little bit more interesting. And the way to make something interesting, there are a few ways, but usually it's kind of the same, grocery list for me. Add detail, add contrast, value. So contrast and value, kind of the same thing here. But what makes things look very flat is if they all have a very similar value. In this case, it's all pretty light except that little bit of darkness in the center. And also there's not a lot of detail, so it's just kind of a blob of paint. And yeah, so because this is so big, I kind of, I have to add a little bit of, or a lot of scribbles to make this more interesting. And I'm trying to think, because I have painted flowers this big on pieces of paper, and I think I use a larger brush, so maybe the brush strokes are a little bit more interesting. Just trying to think what worked before and what I can, which tool I can take out of my toolbox and kind of salvage this. So a lot of things I'm loving here. I really like the colors. I like those delicate, semi-neutrals and neutral colors. They're so interesting, and I always try to include some granulating colors so that granulation will show. But yeah, it is looking a little bit flat. So I grabbed one of these charcoal tinted pencils from Derwent. I'm loving these. I use them, I think, on every page in this journal, and I decided to add this leaf and add some dots to it. I was inspired again by Léonard Creates, her lovely ephemera pack that she sent me. You can see those in a separate video. And she has these florals with some of these polka dot leaves, which I absolutely love. So I thought I would try that. And I mean, seriously, this is a place to try things. This journal, I'm really enjoying it. It's a good size for just a few minutes a day kind of practice. And just a great place to test things, because I know, I'll be painting a new painting the next day. So I can just go in and try things, see what works, see what I like, and what doesn't work and what I don't like. So the first layer is dry here, and now I'm trying to add some layers on top of what I have going. I didn't want to add even more pencil at this point, but I thought I would try to build some layers with watercolors. And the thing is, if you're doing something like this, what you want to keep in mind, or the most important aspect of this type of layering, is to get the consistency right. And you need a very kind of concentrated, more thick application of paint. This would work really well with something like gouache. If you squeezed some gouache straight out of the tube, you would get a nice effect. And of course, we're dealing here already we're in opaque territory. So it's kind of giving up that whole concept of transparent watercolors and just adding some layers. But we're not really giving up, because there are a lot of areas here that only have a layer of, one layer of transparent watercolors. So we still can enjoy both of these, both worlds, let's say. And I think that should totally be encouraged. If you're familiar with Stephen Quiller, he has a fantastic book about color theory, which I've mentioned many times in the past. He paints in everything. I think he also paints in acrylics. I don't think. He also paints in acrylics and not just watercolor, but I think almost in all of his watercolor paintings, at the end, he adds some gouache, some opaque gouache. And that really helps to just add some detail that you might not be able to add with watercolors. So I totally think it's worth kind of giving up on that idea of only using transparent colors, in order to achieve a more interesting result. Okay, so now I decided I needed something here. It wasn't enough for me. So I mixed this very intense purple from the Bright Rose and ultramarine blue, I think it was. I'm kind of behind on watching the video and narrating. And yeah, just, you know, to test things out. I'm not completely loving that particular shade of purple that I got, but I do think that there was a need for a little bit more contrast here. So yeah, just exploring some things here. Now I'm trying to go, because that color was so saturated, now I'm trying to add some more kind of neutralizing colors to kind of tone it down and see what happens. You run the risk of getting things muddy this way, but I think it's worth taking a risk and maybe discovering something that you like instead of just giving up and, you know, still remaining with something you don't like. So here's a close-up, and yeah, this was fun and interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing again in my journal. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.